I just want to do a short tutorial on how you might go about doing your basic secondary research for any given essay to make sure you know the various places you need to go to access the full range of material that the library makes available to you. I'm going to be doing this from broadly an English perspective because I'm a lecturer in English, but the same places, the same mechanisms, the same strategies all apply to history as well. Now, your first port of call I would suggest is ELE. Your module's ELE site will probably have some form of further reading, whether that's just links here or indeed scans that the convener has provided. This will vary from module to module, but what I would suggest is you look up here in the top right hand corner, because many modules, and increasingly we're sort of working towards this, modules have digital reading lists, and this allows the convener to bring together lots and lots of different types of sources. Some of them will be physical books, and if you click you'll be able to go through to the library catalogue to see that physical book. Sometimes there will be scans, sometimes it will be an ebook, and you'll just be able to click straight through to, for example, Brill is a big publisher of ebooks. Here we go. So you can access this. Sometimes you'll be able to download it, sometimes you'll read it online. You can go through, you can search. It might be a PDF that self-destructs after a day, these kind of things. Every ebook publisher is a little bit different, but as I say, these digital reading lists can be a goldmine of secondary research. Now, 2 and 3 are both library catalogues, and I would suggest you look at both. The reason we have 2 library catalogues is because, of course, you are students on the Cornwall campus, but you're also Exeter students, and therefore you have access to the full Exeter range of resources. You'll notice I've put bookmarks for both of them, which I suggest is quite a useful tactic. Now, the Exeter catalogue is lib.exeter.ac.uk. Now, you could use this exclusively because all the Penryn material is on it. Let's pretend we're researching an essay on Virginia Woolf, specifically the novel Mrs. Dalloway, and we want to write on time. So we can type in Virginia Woolf here, and if we leave this box here as it is, we submit, and we get all the records on Virginia Woolf. And you'll notice that the Penryn campus stock is very clearly marked with these double stars here. You can also use advanced search here, and you could specify Penryn, and then you'd only get the Penryn stock. But I would suggest that the Voyager catalogue, which is this Cornwall campus catalogue, is actually quite good and worthy of being your second port of call. So as I say, type in Virginia Woolf. Because we're searching for books at this stage, yes, the essay's on Mrs. Dalloway, but I wouldn't type in Mrs. Dalloway, I'd type in Virginia Woolf. We search here, and we get the Penryn Cornwall campus stock. You're probably very familiar with this catalogue. You'll see it notes whether the book is on loan. It'll actually tell you when the book is back. There we go, the 20th of January. You can recall books, of course, try and get them back off other students. And the catalogue is actually very useful because aside from all this general information here and telling you whether it's on loan or free, it gives you a little summary and often has a table of contents. Not always, but often it does, and that gives you a bit more information to judge whether you think the book's useful. So we see this book here, John Mays's Virginia Woolf, Feminism, Creativity and the Unconscious. That has a whole chapter on Mrs. Dalloway. Also, don't overlook right at the bottom here, this is the shelf, visual representation of the books around the book that you're looking at. So you might have heard, for example, Laura Marcus, the name being mentioned by one of your lecturers. She's a very esteemed critic. So we can click through and say, oh, well, this is a general introduction to Virginia Woolf by Laura Marcus. I heard Marcus being mentioned in the lecture. Yeah, I might have a look at that too. One further thing is think laterally. So we're talking about time, that's what the essay is about. Yes, we're searching Virginia Woolf, but hopefully we know that Virginia Woolf is a modernist, so we may want to do searches like modernism and time. There's no guarantee they'll come up with anything interesting, but this fourth item here, Ronald Schliefer, modernism and time, it's an e-resource, so it's an e-book that we would be able to kind of go through, hopefully. It might be of interest. Click back out. Place and time, place and space in modern fiction. This could be of use. So we have a look. We have a look at the general discussion. There's nothing about Virginia Woolf here. It's on Hardy, Conrad, Forster, Green, Golding, and Spark. But you never know. If it's bang on topic, the introduction might be useful. The index and the bibliography might provide you with some other places to go. So do remember to think laterally. Modernism, daily time, and everyday life would be another example. This does talk about Virginia Woolf. We can see that. Do think laterally as well as just searching for the author under consideration. Now, your third port of call takes us back to lib.exeter.ac.uk. Now, Virginia Woolf. However, what I want to do here is specify eResource. You do have, as an Exeter student, total access to all Exeter stock, and that means you can ask for physical books to be brought down from the Streatham Library to Cornwall, which I might talk about in another tutorial. But what is most useful is ebooks, because they are bought on behalf of the whole university, on behalf of every student, every campus, every department. So whether you're in Cornwall or Exeter, or whether in your house in Falmouth, or whether you are anywhere, in fact, you can access ebooks straight away. So by clicking eResource, by specifying eResource in this drop-down menu here, and typing in your general search, be that Virginia Woolf, be that Modernism and Time, you can check the Exeter ebook stock. And so there might be something here, say Virginia Woolf Modernity History. Those seem very time-focused topics. And you'll be able to click through to the ebook. They may prompt you. So I happen to know that Palgrave's site is being a bit slow this morning. There we go. It may prompt you for your username and password. That's exactly the same as your email. And again, you have the choice to download it, to send it to a Kindle in this case, and also to read it online to make searches on Mrs. Dalloway, for example. All this is able to be done. So your third port of call, I would suggest, is going to this Exeter catalogue and searching the ebook holdings, because increasingly that's a great way of accessing material. The university actually has a digital first policy where if your lecturers are ordering books, the university will choose to buy an ebook rather than a physical book as a matter of choice, as a matter of preference, because of course ebooks can be read, accessed by all students. We don't have the problem of whether it's in Cornwall or in Streatham, or the problem of students checking out all the copies and lots of students on the module going after, say, 2 copies of one book. Ebooks get around all of that, and you can access them anywhere you want. Your fourth port of call, I would say, is journal articles. Now, these are the shorter works written by critics, maybe between 5,000 and 9,000 words, which are accessed through journals. Now, because they're shorter pieces of work, I would suggest narrowing your search. We don't want to wade through every single journal article written on Virginia Woolf, so visit Mrs. Dalloway like so. As I say, this is the search. It's on the lib.exeter.ac.uk, but you're not looking at the book catalogue, you're looking at this second search bit here, which is specifically for journal articles. Use this to find journal articles. Click through, and you'll see a list of results. There's a couple of different types of archive down here. Often you'll see the same article popping up more than once, but don't just leave it on the first set of search results. Do go through JSTOR, Project Muse. You will hopefully recognise some of these archive names. Sometimes you can click straight through a PDF. It may prompt you to accept copyright and to type in your username and password. Sometimes you'll have to go through an intermediate site like WebBridge. But do have a look through all of these things. The only one that I'd say is probably not so useful is dissertations and theses. These are PhD scans of PhD dissertations written by graduate students. Now, that may be useful if you're working on something particularly obscure or you're working at a very advanced level in the third year, but for your basic secondary research, I'd concentrate on journals, Project Muse, archive journals, these kind of things, JSTOR. Don't just look at the titles, look at where they're coming from. Now, 20th Century Literature, that's a pretty good journal, but this is from 1972, this first article, so that's not necessarily going to be the most relevant piece of criticism. Do try and pitch your research away from things, for example, in the 60s and towards things that are more recent from after 2000, from the 90s, for example. Also think about the type of journal. Literature and theology, for example, I remember seeing a little bit earlier. The British Journal of Educational Studies. They're not specifically literature journals if you're doing a literary essay. Similar in terms of history, do think about the discipline that the journal is aimed at. Bear in mind, of course, you can do more specific searches, Virginia Woolf, Mrs. Dalloway, time, and that'll bring things together in a slightly more precise way. Narrativizing characters, Journal of Modern Literature, that might be useful. We click on the PDF, it'll carry us through, might prompt me to put in my username and password. No, I've already done that. Accept the terms and conditions, and you get the PDF of the article, which may well have some stuff on time. I would say if you go through those 4 sites, those 4 methods, look at ELE and the digital reading list, look at the Cornwall campus catalogue, look at the Exeter ebook stock, and look at the Exeter journal article search. If you do all of that, if you think laterally, then you'll have more than enough material to support any essay at any level of undergraduate study.